Snoopy. Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great.
Just not cannabis. Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
All right, welcome back, live listeners. It's hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. Phone lines are open, 84-420 radio. That's 844-207-2346. It's getting warm here in Portland again. We're heading toward our 26th day, over 90 degrees, which for Portland is a record. We're usually pretty cool here in the Pacific Northwest, but a lot of people don't have air conditioners, and it can be a little difficult. Now, I, of course, can't run the air conditioner while the show is on. It makes a whole lot of noise. Let's go to our phone lines. We got a call from the 951 area code. You're on the air with Toker Talk Radio. What's on your mind?
Hi, Russ. This is Mike from the Human Solution Volunteering.
Excellent. You're calling in with our weekly update. Thank you, man. What's happening?
Well, today in Orange County Superior Court, the Santa Ana Police Officers Union and 300 identified officers that had filed a restraining order against a video that was going to be used by the Dome Police Department Internal Affairs. Judge Bauer ruled that there was no reason that it should be kept out of court, that the officers didn't have any reasonable expectation of privacy while they were on the job.
That is excellent news. Nice to see a court making the right decision. Of course, this is the case where the Santa Ana cops were raiding a dispensary. They took down what they thought were all of the security cams. Turns out they missed one, and that security cam caught them not only allegedly eating edibles, but also basically demeaning a woman who works with your organization, if I'm correct, right?
Marla James, yes, she's one of the co-founders of Human Solution.
Wow. So good news that they'll finally have to answer in court and that video can be used against them. The Human Solution International is an organization that's helping out with many of the cases of people still fighting our cannabis laws. You can find them at thsintl.org. And you've been following a few of these cases for us. Do you have any updates on the Kansas cases or anyone else out there?
Well, there is, I guess, an evidentiary hearing at the end of this month in Shonabanda. It'll just basically be the lawyers fighting out what they can admit and talk about in discovery. In the Amber's case where her child was taken by her stepson, it looks as though that was decided that her son will be returned within the month.
Oh, no.
Her daughter, her 11-year-old daughter.
Will be returned, did you say?
Yes, will be returned.
Oh, that's good news too. Well, thank you so much for letting us know about that. And anybody that wants to know more about these cases, check out thsintl.org. That's the Human Solution International, the abbreviation INTL, and .org on it, and you will find that. Thanks for calling in again. We always appreciate it when you update us.
Yes, and remember, nobody deserves to go to jail for a plant.
Damn right. Thanks so much, and take care.
You too, Russ.
All right. So another thing that we've got going on here is we have a book that was sent to us by a listener out there, and his name's John R. It's J.R. Fox. Could be female. Don't know. But the headline here is How Do We Teach Our Children? And it's talking about a book that's been written here called The Gloops and the Special Plant. And so I thought that I would just play a little of this for you, read a little of this for you, and we could hear, just about how some of these children's books are coming about for kids and understanding marijuana. And this is something that we're going to have more of as marijuana becomes legal across this country. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a little children's book entitled The Gloops and the Special Plant. The Gloops and the Special Plant by J.R. Fox. Molly Gloop is a happy little girl who lives on a world very much like ours, but in some ways different. Molly loves to read books and play with her bloople and go on adventures in nature. Molly's parents are Mr. and Mrs. Gloop. They are kind and sometimes silly. They work together in a nursery. The nursery is very much like other nurseries, but in some ways different. In this nursery grows a special plant. It is as ancient as the very first family of Gloops. It smells sweet and loves the sound of singing. The plant can be used to make many, many things. It can make clothes like Molly's dress. It can make paper for Molly to color on. It can make medicine for sick Gloops and help them to be well again. And sometimes grown-up Gloops eat the plant and it helps them to be silly together. Sometimes grown-ups need to be reminded to be silly. Children are so good at being silly already. It can even be made into toys for the little blooples. It is a very special and useful plant. Mr. and Mrs. Gloop are happy to sing to it and help it grow. Though years and years ago, the old kings of the Gloops did not like the special plant at all. It gave the Gloops so much. The old kings were selfish and did not want the Gloops to have the plant. So the old kings filled the Gloops' ears with rumors. They said it made Gloops lazy, which it didn't, unless they were already a lazy Gloop. They said it made Gloops sick, which it did just the opposite. They said it made Gloops ugly, which of course it didn't. They said it made Gloops bad, which it didn't, unless the Gloop already wanted to be bad. Sadly, many of the Gloops did not understand that the plant was special and useful, and they believed the old king's rumors. The old kings commanded that the Gloops give up all of the special seeds so that no more of the plant could grow. But Mr. and Mrs. Gloop and lots of other Gloops who loved the plant stood up to the old kings and said no. It took a long time, but the Gloops kept on saying no, and eventually most of the other Gloops realized the plant was good. They said no too. Try as they might, the old kings could not take away the special seeds. So the special plant lived on. It made dresses and paper for Molly, medicine for sick Gloops, reminded grown-ups to be silly, and made toys for the blooples everywhere. Sadly, some Gloops still believe the old kings. But this doesn't get Molly or her parents down. If ever another Gloop says to them, "You must be lazy," or "You must be bad," they simply smile and say, "We are good Gloops, and we love each other. Someday, you will know it too." That's The Gloops and the Special Plant, written and illustrated by J.R. Fox.
420 Radio is brought to you by Sacred Serum, who is focused on creating elegant and sophisticated cannabis solutions through its line of dispensers and vaporizers that come preloaded with the world's finest cannabis concentrate. Sacred Serum's concentrate is made on pharmaceutical-grade supercritical CO2 extraction machines that use absolutely no butane or other toxic chemicals. The Vesica, the company's innovative new way to dab and frost, is now available in dispensaries across California. Sacred Serum, elegance and sophistication concentrated.
420 Radio is listener-supported 24-hour internet radio. Our mission is to provide exposure to the activists nationwide fighting for the end of marijuana prohibition. You can help sustain our mission with a one-time donation to 420 Radio at 420radio.org/donate. You can also become a monthly VIP member at 420radio.org/donate and get access to our members-only content. Your donation keeps our stream and podcasts free at 420radio.org/donate.
Hi, I'm Alex Rogers, producer of the 4th Oregon Medical Marijuana Business Conference, the OMMBC. There have been a lot of recent changes to Oregon cannabis laws. Recreational sales start October 1st, new licensing from the state, and changes to medical marijuana. Are you prepared? Join us at the downtown Portland Hilton September 12th and 13th with the industry's top cannabis business experts, political leaders, exhibitors, and nightly networking events. For more information, join us online or give us a call. The OMMBC. Be part of history.
Nice to know ya, let's do it again. How we did it on a one night stand. Girl, I wanna be more than a friend to ya.
Welcome back, everybody. That's J Boog with Let's Do It Again, the remix. You're listening to Toker Talk Radio on 420radio.org. I want to follow up on the rant that I did earlier because there was a news story today that kind of leads into this. Nice little segue. And that was how Responsible Ohio is fighting the language that the Ohio Ballot Board used to summarize their constitutional initiative. And they're not upset about pointing out that it's 10 growers or all the other details, but they're upset about one word. They're upset about recreational. They don't like that the language in the ballot description describes them legalizing recreational marijuana because there's nothing in their amendment that refers to recreational use. Everything in their amendment refers to personal use. And they say that this is an unfair ballot summary because the word recreational is kind of a loaded word that drives down the support for legalization. And that personal use is a more appropriate and fair term. And I agree with them because I always think that the word recreational use of marijuana is a misnomer, right? Recreational to me is playing, recreating, like RVs, recreational vehicles, like, hiking or scuba diving or, four-wheeling, whatever. That's recreation, right? And to put drug use in that category makes drug use more frivolous, makes it more optional, makes it play, makes it a luxury. You understand it? It puts it in this frame where recreation is. Recreation is something that's nice to have, but it's playtime, right? And so when you frame the personal use of marijuana as recreational use of marijuana, you enable opponents to position you in a place where you're trying to fight for fun and partying and the right to get high. And then they can use that in comparison to things like medical marijuana. We see this in that division between medical and recreational when they say things like, I'm a patient, not a criminal, which again casts us, the recreational users, as having a less noble reason or an ignoble reason, if you will, for using cannabis. To me, personal use is an important distinction because personal use says all use is none ya. It's none your business. It doesn't matter why I'm using marijuana. And one of the attorneys that responded to this, that was part of this complaint to the Ohio board, pointed out that you don't call someone a recreational smoker. You know, a recreational cigarette smoker. Nobody's referred to as recreational drinkers. Social drinkers sometimes, but not recreational drinkers, right? So it's wrong to refer to marijuana use as recreational marijuana use, because recreational is the language of division. If the subject is how do we get unity back into marijuana? How do we get unity back into the cannabis community? We need to stop using the word recreational, because recreational is one leg of a three-legged stool. And that stool is deciding that the reason you use marijuana is a determinant as to whether or not you should be allowed to use marijuana. By using the word recreational, we automatically put ourselves in a frame where someone has to be an arbiter of our marijuana use to determine whether or not we are worthy of a cage or worthy of freedom. Recreational is a word that has to stand in opposition to the other two legs of the stool, medical and spiritual. Or if you want to make it a chair, industrial. Yeah, industrial hemp. We could throw that in there too, although it's not as much of a division issue when we talk about hemp. Although it can be. Sometimes the hemp people get a little upset at the marijuana people and don't want to be lumped in with all that. But the problem with that type of framing is it is, by definition, the framing of division. Recreational as a term cannot exist to refer to a cannabis consumer without juxtaposing it against medical and spiritual. In other words, using the word recreational tacitly accepts the concept of determining who's worthy of a cage based on their reason for use. And I find that to be illogical and detrimental to our fight. The minute that we started saying medical marijuana, it was a double-edged sword. The good side of it was that it softened marijuana, and it softened the frames around marijuana. The frame around marijuana in the 70s, 80s, and 90s was all about, partying, drugs, cocaine, slackers, losers, violence, gangs. All of that was part of the framing of marijuana. So to add medical to the beginning of it was a pretty smart marketing move. And it's kind of like, when George W. Bush called himself a compassionate conservative. The other side of that double-edged sword is by making medical marijuana, just like making compassionate conservative, you implicitly accept the idea that the term, the second term by itself had something wrong with it, right? Compassionate conservative automatically makes you think, well, what are other conservatives then, right? They must not be compassionate. If we're distinguishing this one is a compassionate one. Just like medical marijuana automatically distinguishes this isn't like those people, those stoners, those criminals. It isn't like that. It's medical. It's a separate thing. And it implies that the other marijuana that's not medical must be something else at best and something lesser at worst. So I would eschew the use of the word recreational marijuana because of its implicit divisive nature. It implicitly says the people that are using marijuana for their own reasons, that have nothing to do with medical or spiritual needs, are somehow lesser or immoral or different in their deserving of freedom than the people using it for medical needs or for spiritual needs. So let's make an effort to start talking about personal use of marijuana. That we're talking about personal, and the only difference in marijuana isn't at the consumer end, why you're using it, but it's at the production end. It's how and to what extent are you producing it. There is only personal marijuana and commercial marijuana. It's all the same plant, except of course the industrial hemp is different, yes. And yes, the low CBD plants are different, yes. But generally speaking, medical users, spiritual users, and so-called recreational users are all using the same plant, Let's all band together and decide that our personal use of it makes no difference.
This is bullshit. It's like Cypress Hill concert in here.
And remember, folks, framing does not necessarily match tactics. You may be in a state that still needs to go the medical route to make any reform. These days, though, I'm beginning to think medical is kind of a limiting proposition. Maybe we should start with decrim and work toward personal use. We'll talk more about it on future shows.
This is Joy Beckerman-Maher, and you're listening to 420radio.org.
Oregon has joined Washington and Colorado in legalizing marijuana. We're Portland NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws chapter in Portland, Oregon. Join us as we celebrate the launch of an exciting new era in marijuana freedom in Oregon. Our job has just begun. Powerful interests want to white out the most important portions of Oregon's legalization law. By joining Portland NORML, you add your voice to the thousands who voted for Measure 91 and want it to be implemented as written. The people have spoken. Now it is time for the legislature to obey the will of the people. Find out more about Portland NORML at portlandnormal.org. Attend our monthly membership meetings on the fourth Saturday of the month. See our website for more details. Portland NORML, ensuring responsible adult marijuana consumers are afforded the same rights, privileges, and responsibilities as beer drinkers. The Fingerboard extension has fretted instruments to enhance your creativity. It has new and used guitars and banjos from beginning to high class. The Fingerboard extension has National Resophonic, Husson Dalton, Larrabee, Heritage and Recording King guitars, and Mike Ramsey, Wildwood, Gold Tone, and Recording King banjos. The Fingerboard extension also has drum stuff, used gear, and parts. Stop by the Fingerboard extension, downtown Corvallis, Oregon at 120 Northwest 2nd, or check out the inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com and reverb.com. Get.Buzz. .Buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .Buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .Buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .Buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz. At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of The Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Irie Wednesday, featuring reggae, ska, and other world music genres. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tunes.
All right, we've got more music from the Seattle Hemp Fest, and this absolutely does not fit in the Irie Wednesday category, unless we're going to say world music includes hard rock from America. But I had the chance to catch this band. They were called Gebular, and I'd never heard of them before, but it's a three-piece band, lead singer, guitar player, bass player, and drummer, and I gotta say, they rocked it. They were a really, really good band. I gotta say, the Seattle Hemp Fest bands, over just the past 5 years, the quality has gone up, and I'm really excited about a lot of these bands. So this is Gebular. I don't know the name of the song. I'm going to try to look it up and find out more about the band, maybe have them on the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. But this is their performance at the McWilliams stage at Seattle Hemp Fest just a couple days ago.
This is Mara Felsen, and you're listening to 420radio.org. There we go.
This is Radical Russ encouraging you to take a look at the Weed Blog every day. Johnny Green and the staff at the Weed Blog are on top of all the latest developments in the fight to end marijuana prohibition nationwide. You can even get the Weed Blog on your smartphone by installing the Weed Blog app for iPhone and Android. If it's about weed, it's on the Weed Blog, including my original writing. So don't delay. Read the Weed Blog today. Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio, among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org. You're listening to 420 Radio. Listen Fridays at 1 p.m. Pacific for Planet Green Trees, podcasting at planetgreentrees.com. The best resource for everything related to Michigan medical marijuana with your host, attorney Michael Comorn. Check our online listings for Planet Green Trees with Michael Comorn from planetgreentrees.com. Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
Welcome back, everyone. Just about half past. That's Peter Broggs with No Ism Ponderidum. That's some Irie Wednesday music. But we're going to take you back to Seattle Hemp Fest for an amazing panel on terpenes. That's right, terpenes, those chemicals within the marijuana plant that give it the smell, the taste, and some of the psychoactive feel of cannabis. You're going to learn a whole lot in this one, so listen up. It's Seattle Hemp Fest and the terpene panel. We turn things over to moderator Donnie Wirtschafter.
Well, so what a terpene is think about you have your plant matter or your flower, your bud, and then you have those little crystals sticking off of them, and those are resin heads. Well, on top of the resin heads, there's like a little membrane, and it's that's the terpenes. And terpenes are in lots of organic, all over. They're in fruits, they're in plants, they're occurring naturally, just the way they occur naturally in the cannabis plant. The terpenes that are in the cannabis plant, we've found that have a lot of amazing uses. And I've done a lot of studying with Ethan Russo and some of his works where he talks about how terpenes can actually, certain terpenes can be an antidote for when you get too uncomfortably high. They can mitigate the delta 9s. And so I am really fascinated with how terpenes are able to work with the cannabis plant, work in the cannabis plant. And one of the other things that's been pretty interesting is seeing people separate the terpenes from the actual THC. It's super interesting, and that's kind of where my passions are lying, and I'll be talking about today.
Hello. My name is Wes, editor of Northwest Leaf and Oregon Leaf magazine. To start off about the cutting edge of cannabis, I always like to tell people the cutting edge is now, but we are in the ground floor time of this industry. There is no time better than now to get involved in the cannabis industry in any way, shape, or form. There's jobs being created. This is a new industry, and things are constantly being innovated and becoming better. And so I think, leaving it at that as far as jobs in the industry, jump in. as far as the cutting edge, kind of what Allison talked about in terpenes, I think terpenes are going to become a major talking point for people when they start thinking about the flavors and the essence of cannabis. And this September, I'm actually hosting an event in Portland called Tannins and Terpenes, where people are able to come out and sample small amounts of wine and cannabis and learn about the flavors and the essence and the entourage effect of cannabinoids. And I think that in the future here, we need to fight to have cannabis use anywhere where people can have alcohol use. And ultimately, we all know cannabis is safer than alcohol. And so I think that the cutting edge of this is going to be normalizing our plant, normalizing our culture, and then letting our culture rise from being suppressed to being an actual alpha culture, because we're great, happy, healthy people, and pot makes people better. And I really believe that, and I think the future is very strong for all of us. Thank you.
Well, my interest, really deepest interest with cannabis, is trying to determine the evolution of the plant under domestication, and even earlier. But ever since the beginning of the Holocene and the world started warming up 10, 12,000 years ago, humans have had a relationship with cannabis. And we've molded it in different ways. And one way, since we're talking about terpenes, we'll talk about that. We have two, basically, in Mark's and my minds and other people, we see that cannabis is divided into two species. And I'll give you a little taxonomy here real quick. Cannabis sativa is rope. It's not dope, okay? So calling dope varieties sativas is a misnomer right out of the gates, okay? We see that the other part of cannabis, the vast majority of it, probably 90% of the cannabis that's on Earth, is cannabis indica. That consisting of 3 subspecies. The 2 that interest us here are indica subspecies indica, which everybody calls sativa, the narrow-leafed, longer maturing, and we'll talk about in a minute, different terpene profiles from the broad-leafed ones. That's subspecies afghanica. And that's what everybody calls indica. And there are reasons why we came to this misnomer, but kindly in the future reserve sativa for hemp, for rope, and indica and afghanica rather than sativa and indica for the drug varieties, okay? Now what we have today is a blending of indica and afghan, of narrow-leaf drug varieties and broadleaf drug varieties. And along with these 2 gene pools came different cannabinoids and also different terpenoids. Terpenoids being, well, we should just say terpenes, actually. Terpenoids are a subgroup of the terpenes that have been modified chemically, okay? And both are in cannabis, as well as in a lot of aroma ingredients that are not terpenes, but they're aromatic, all right? And those things all are what make the different highs in cannabis. This is what we're finding. THC by itself is boring. And until these CBD varieties came along, these new medical varieties, not just abstracts of social varieties, better to call them than recreational varieties, we've come to this mix, this hybrid mix. It's a mishmash. As Michael Bacchus said the other day, it's a trailer park model, okay? The first generations out of the mishmash of a trailer park are some handsome boys and girls. And after that, it gets a little inbred, you know? They should have left home a little earlier. So that's what we're dealing with cannabis. You have this complete range from nearly narrow-leaf varieties to nearly broadleaf varieties. And a few land races that built all these Afghan land races or Mexican, Thais, Colombians, Jamaicans, the narrow-leafed ones. And those are almost gone now. There's still a few around. But what we have left is a real mishmash. With the terpenes, it's become a non-tourage effect. So many varieties have a little bit of all the terpenes. This is sort of how the breeding has gone. It's an accumulative kind of thing. So it's hard now to find, for me at least, to find varieties that are unique in a particular way. They're strong as hell. They smell good. They look good in a bag or a bottle, but the diversity is really minimal. And that's the final message. Terpene diversity, all the diversity. We need to enhance this. We've managed to come down to such a narrow genetic base for what we're working with. We're actually, despite all the varieties you see, kind of on the edge of blowing it. You know, we need to bring in some new juice. The trailer park needs new residents.
Where did they come from?
Well, they're going to come from those shoe boxes and cigar boxes. And remember those little film cans where they stuck their seeds in? Well, go dig in your bloody closet. You know, go get them out. Sprout them. And if you can't sprout them, the Phylos Bioscience Cannabis Evolution Project would love to sequence the DNA that's in them. So sprout them. Give us some leaves if you sprout them. But if they're not going to sprout, dry them off real good and let us have them, and we'll get some science out of them.
Right on. Well, this great panel must have sparked some good audience questions here, right? Who's got one? I'll come to you in a second here. I do want to say our next panel very well follows this one. These people are talking about all the great innovations that can take place in cannabis, but oh, we don't have it. Oh, okay. I'm being corrected. So, coming up next is the Ngayo Show.
Hi, I was at the Patients at a Time conference in West Palm Beach in May, and one of the panels there, some scientists were talking about new research that seems to show that the terpenes actually interact with the cannabinoids for the medical effects. And there may be advantages, for instance, to smoking over vaping for medical purposes. And I was wondering if any of you have heard anything about, you know, research with terpenes having some medical effect, and what do you think of that?
I can take it quickly from my perspective. Terpenes are really important to topicals, like terpenes like beta-carotene and linalool actually help the cannabinoids to absorb through the top layers of the skin. So to kind of build in a transdermal, if you will, effect, and that definitely adds to the efficacy of everything that I do. So super important and built in and all natural. You don't have to use something like a DMSO to do the same thing when you could use the terpene naturally.
I would also agree. There's myrcene, which has been found to be really amazing for pain relief. And you find that in like your cushes or your broader leafed plants, where you're going to have higher myrcene. And so I definitely see myrcene as being really amazing for chronic pain treatment.
And we're kind of lucky with that because myrcene, the high myrcene, high limonene terpene classes, if you will. This will be published pretty soon, not by me, but it's coming up. And the biggest class statistically are the cushes, the OGs, this sort of stuff, the myrcene dominant ones. And this is probably largely because skunk number 1 that came out of the Netherlands a long time ago has exactly that profile. And caryophyllene would be the third prominent one, but about 85% of the terpenes in skunk number 1 are myrcene. So that's the root to a lot of the varieties we have. It came to us a long time ago. The prominent terpene in the hop plant, in hops cones, is also myrcene. So this is an early evolutionary thing back when they were probably before hops and hemp were separate plants. So it's kind of far out that way too.
And you have that Israeli study that was published last month where they compared a CBD extract with a CBD isolate. You know, so you're comparing the whole plant extract versus just the CBD alone, and the whole plant extract proved far more effective in their studies. And I think that'll get duplicated with THC or anything else. The Sativex is pretty much whole plant extract, you know, because THC alone is a very boring drug.
It really is. Pure THC is just not interesting at all. And you just get these extracts, that the labs are doing these days, where they're getting out every terpene, and they get them so pure they stick the terpenes back in. You overdo that a little bit, and it's called solvent abuse. You know, you got to get little tiny amounts of these things for them to be effective, and for them to be safe, I would think, and to taste good and work.
Kenny Morrow does a lot of separation of the THC and the terpenes, and I have to say that I don't really like. It's the only chance I've ever truly had to separate it, and the THC really isn't good by itself.
So I've been somewhat fearful of what I'm going to talk about. So for the last couple of years, there have been people working on creating a blend and then reintroducing terpenes into it. You can actually harvest, the terpenes that are in cannabis are not significantly different than the ones in other botanicals. And then creating a THC blank and then making a compounded medicine out of it, which is, breaks my organic heart, but is seemingly where the pharmaceutical industry is going to run with this. And so what is the state of that? I mean, that seems to me to be the mainstream cutting edge of the people who are not going to want to smoke products and that feel more comfortable with a scientific compounded medicine and, allopathic Western medicine rather than this.
I think they're deluding themselves. It's like John said earlier today. As soon as these medicines are perceived, these plants are perceived as medicines, they're going to be legislated that way. Don't you think the Food and Drug Administration is just dying to get out the only thing they've ever seen that's both a food, touted to be a food, and a drug? And they're going to go nuts with this. And I think people who are cubby-holing themselves to the scientific side, if you want to call it that, and trying to look like legit medical people, we tried this years ago in the Netherlands. We tried to make a Marinol equivalent. You would not believe the hassles. We allied with Merck Generics. They couldn't get it into the United States. They have all the lawyers and all the money on the planet, and they couldn't do it. So if you think you're going to get a naturally derived THC, and not you, but all you other folks out there are doing this, you are barking up the wrong tree and wasting your time and money is the advice I'd give you right here and now. Go on with natural formulations and get away from trying to look straight.
But we were just 20 years ahead of our time, Rob.
I think, also though, your question of thank you. Pharmacological companies are trying to take this plant from us. And every time I look at GW Pharmaceutical stock and I see it going down because Sativex is tanking, I get a big smile. Because it truly is about the natural plant. But being real, they are trying to use terpenes. They are trying to use flavonoids. They are trying to find ways to create a cannabis capsule. And, I don't know if that is good or bad. It comes with kind of good and evil. And it's a question we have to ask ourselves as we move forward with this as a medicine and as a recreational substance, which direction we want it to go. And if we want to keep the industry in small business hands and out of big pharma, then we'll prevent, the perversion of our plant, hopefully.
Well, I love hearing GW being called big pharma. And I also wonder why you say that Sativex isn't a natural plant.
Well, Sativex is a 1-to-1 synthetic THC and CBD.
Not at all true, Wes.
They're both naturally derived from two different varieties and blended later.
That Rob gets credit for breeding.
The CBD is grown outside in the UK, and the skunk number 1 that they use for their production is grown indoors, and or in supplementally lighted greenhouses. And then they blend them later.
Let's see. Next questions from Jerry here, who's doing the hemp convention in Oregon Medical Cannabis Cup, October 10th and 11th in Portland.
Thanks, panel, for being here today. Through our research and development, what we're doing out on the farm in Oregon growing hemp, we're real proud to be doing this in Oregon, first of all. We come through a lot of leaps and bounds to get to where we've gotten.
Yeah.
But we've been in this industry for a little bit, just like all of us. So what we found out is the more that you take the plant out of its natural state, it's kind of like the worse off you are. If you can leave that baby in its natural state, it's a blessing from the higher spirits. And so I'm just saying, I've taken and purchased natural limonene and different types of substances and tried to add them back in and played around with it with a lot of different edible products and whatnot. But once you start playing with Mother Nature, I'm a farmer by trade, you're playing with the man upstairs. So I'm just telling everybody here, from what I know, don't mess with it. Let it happen. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. First, I wanted to thank you all for being here, and I wanted to ask if you think that in the future we'll have these technologies to to rescue the terpenes from our drying plants, in a way.
That would be interesting. I'm gonna let you take this.
Now this is really interesting. There are a couple of things that have been worked on to get the terpenes back out of even a grow room, okay? And you should be able to condense the terpenes back out, the smell that you get in a grow room that you're exhausting, that irritates your neighbors and alerts the police. You should be able to get those back out. They do it in the citrus industry. They take, that's why we have so much limonene. They basically take it out of citrus production, and we have heaps of natural limonene. That you need to, the other technique that I've heard about is you know when you make water hash and the water smells really good and then you dump it down the drain? Well, that's kind of a loss there too. So there are ways, I don't know exactly how it's being done, but there are people who have figured out ways without solvents to get those terpenes back out of the water. They're doing some kind of partitioning. It's not that difficult if you're a organic chemist guy, but yeah, without doing anything except getting them back, they're getting it, and they get the whole suite. You know, the funny thing is that we're so used to losing terpenes that if you take the terpenes you took out of the water hash and you put them all back in that water hash where you think they belong, way too many terpenes. You know, that's overdosing it too. So actually, if we start collecting them, we'll have a surplus of them.
Nice.
It's just like all the other industries.
We're losing a lot of terpenes whenever you make bubble hash. It's pretty amazing.
Or put the bag in your pocket.
Or as the Oregon farmer said, anytime you mess with it at all, you know, you're getting every time you smell your weed, you're losing terpenes. All right.
Potency power.
No, you got to keep it in glass jars and in a cool, dark place, and rarely ever open it.
Yeah, and little containers, so you just open a little bit at a time. Seal meals in the freezer.
In the freezer.
Yeah.
Not everyone agrees with the freezer, but you know.
In and out of the freezer, no good.
I like it.
In once, out once, beautiful.
I got to thank our panel. That's all the time we've got.
Thank you.
Okay, Al Warner, Allison Grayson, Wes Abney,
I
Rob
didn't get to
Clark.
smoke any terpenes. Sorry. We were going to.
Thank you so much for coming and talking to the Hemposium today, Sunday, 2015. We have the Ed Gaio show coming up right now, but I'm sorry. Hey, I just got cut off, and I'm told we can keep going. Isn't that great? Hey, all right. So, who's got a question? Let's see. Susan was next.
And while we're going for that, I want to mention something that Oz said earlier. Terpenes are great facilitators for getting compounds across membranes. Quick example. Do you remember Hall's mentholyptus cough drops? Yeah. That's in there to get the soothing sugar down your throat and get the stuff in there. It's menthol is a terpene found in cannabis, and eucalyptol is from eucalyptus. Most terpenes are named after their primary source. Limonene is from limes and lemons. Those are classic examples. We've used them for years and years in over-the-counter products to make them work better, to facilitate their use.
So can I just say one more thing about terpenes and that blank slate kind of situation? Because in my process, when I'm formulating, when I'm extracting, and I'm starting to do some straight up extraction, but mostly it's fat infusion, and I lose almost all of my terpenes in that. In my process with topicals, it's different than adding terps back into vapor, to a concentrate, to vape, or whatever you're going to do. These terpenes are part of the formulation. So lavender, eucalyptus, cinnamon, myrrh, all that stuff is actually added to it. So topicals are actually very rich in all of these terpenes. And, it depends on what the blend is. but it's a great source of terpenes for topical therapy. Yeah.
I wanted to add a little bit. So I mentioned earlier about how certain terpenes can be antidotes to mitigate the effects of delta 9s. So Ethan Russo studied and came out with an article in the British Journal of Psychopharmacology about how limonene and pinene, which are found in orange juice, lemonade, pine nuts, pistachio nuts, black pepper is also another one. That's different terpene. How limonene, so the limonene and the pinene actually balance the delta 9. So if you get too uncomfortable, I always tell people to keep some orange juice on hand, because if you get too uncomfortably high, drink your orange juice and you can feel better. You still have the body high. It just mitigates the delta 9 heady effects of it. But that's one way that it can be used medically, I guess, if you're too high.
Gee, I always thought it was just the sugar.
My question for the panel, sorry, excuse me. So we have medical marijuana, the awareness of medical marijuana has emerged outside of the medical authority. And so if they're encouraging plant-based medicine, then how do you see the future for marijuana as a whole plant when the medical authority is very pharmaceutical-based, pill-based?
Well, I think that the future depends on the laws and the legislation that gets passed. As we're progressing, we have states now that have medical marijuana where you cannot smoke it. And so it's very much state by state and county by county, even in, say, California, for what you can do. So the future of the whole plant, even under 502, where you can still go to jail for having a single plant under legalization, the future of the plant is uncertain. I think we have to fight for it, and it's up to us to really work as advocates of our plant and as activists and make sure that we get good laws that protect personal freedoms, keep people out of prison, and protect it as a medicine.
I'd like to just add something to, states' rights and what's going on. Something happened pretty spectacular 2 weeks ago. The National Conference of State Legislators met here in Seattle last 2 weeks, and they passed a resolution to have the federal government get off the backs of states' rights to control what goes on for marijuana in the state. So this was actually monumental that happened, and almost nobody knows about it.
All right, another one of my gurus here when I was getting into industrial hemp, Chris Conrad, was there with the Business Alliance for Commerce in Hemp, and there were no businesses yet. So he understood. He saw the future and what was going to be needed and how important unity amongst hemp businesses was, and it's the reason we're here today.
Hey, thanks, Bonnie. Thanks, everybody, for being here, too, and thank you for Hemposiums being the stage that really brings out the discussions. I have kind of two questions. One of them I don't know enough of it to really ask it very well, but maybe one of you knows, which is I heard that there was a study out of Humboldt State University that kind of suggested that telling someone they were smoking indica or sativa had as much of an effect on them, the response, as actually giving them indica versus sativa. But I don't really know the study, so maybe one of you knows that. My more other question really, though, is the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia, and I think Rob probably has some ideas about that. What the significance of them coming forward. If you could just bring that up and explain to people what that is and why that's so important.
Yeah, the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia is a series of books about a lot of this may be the 40th one, the one about cannabis, 30th, 40th one. And it's an effort to standardize a lot of the herbs that are used in medicines and used herbally, let's just say, in America. So there's one for the salvias and all the different things that go in teas and ointments and balms and things. And part of the normalization process is to look at cannabis this way. And they were a bit resistant to do this, but they finally saw that it would work, and they got a lot of really good experts to help them out and build this. It's a great resource. American Herbal Pharmacopoeia, it's $45 hard copy, and you can order it from Scotts Valley, California. They'll mail it to you. I don't even think there's any postage. Yeah, it's a really good reference, and I get it now. It'll be in PDF before too long, because that's the way they do it, but they'll sell you a PDF for cheaper.
And that just happened last year, where the monograph just came out last year,
Yeah,
reinstating cannabis as part of the American Pharmacopoeia.
As far as like the study that you were talking about, the power of suggestion psychologically is so strong. I'm sure that you could tell them all kinds of things, like they were taking acid and they would act like they were on acid. So I think that the power of suggestion is really strong, and I can imagine that probably has some validity. But I'm going to check on that though.
I would like to see this too, and I absolutely believe that that would be the result. The biggest problem with trying to do research about this is going to be separating the power of suggestion from everything else. Does a patient receive the relief from medical cannabis that they are getting from the medical cannabis, or is it that they're getting the relief that they expect to get from it? And this is only enhanced, this problem is only enhanced by the different aromas of cannabis. Now someone will smell a bag of cannabis and go, without even smoking it, and go, this is going to give me the relief I seek. I'd like to go through and get a bunch of reverse ones that smell like a certain thing and do the opposite. Because you could breed these, you know, we're not stuck with what we have. But that'd be really fun to go around and try to, you might even need these somehow to do an experiment where, yeah, first of all, you could not use anyone who'd ever smoked cannabis before. You know, it's going to be difficult. And you can't use paid people because they're paid to do it. So it gets difficult.
For 5 years, I've been asking that question and got the best answer that you said. Is it suggestive, or is there something chemically? Is there anything objectively that I can take to 360 and say, is this sativa and indica? And the answer is no. I asked Dr. Elsa Hooley that analyzes every piece of marijuana seeds federally, locally, municipally in the United States, tens of thousands a week. He says there's absolutely different. Just like he said there's no difference in the gene pool that we can see, that we can analyze objectively yet. I'm telling you, at this point, other than subjective, it's all snake oil. Now there's some research that might pin some terpenes with some other ones, but hasn't been released yet, and we're on the verge, we're on the eve of that happening. That's going to happen apparently, but right now, there's nothing genetically, there's nothing chemically that we can tell the difference. It's all snake oil.
That's a great panel on terpenes. You can catch that up on my SoundCloud page at soundcloud.com/radicalrush. Should be up later this evening, maybe an hour or two. We'll get that uploaded. All of my Seattle Hempfest recordings are available on soundcloud.com/radicalrush. They're all part of one set list, playlist, I guess. So if you follow that, you'll get the latest updates to that. And then maybe sometime this weekend, I'll get the videos posted to my YouTube page. That's going to take some editing, but we'll get that available for you as soon as possible. That's all the time I got for today. Time flies when you legalize. Thanks for being here. Join us tomorrow. Dr. David Bierman will be on the show with his new book, Drugs Are Not the Devil's Tools, Volume 1 and 2. For everyone here at Rolla J Studios in beautiful legal Potland, Oregon, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.